because I want to start this week by introducing you a little into the concept, into the idea of exponential organizations. And we're on this bridge where knowing what happened in the past, the uncertainty of what's going to happen in the future, no one knows how the world will look like in 2 years, in 5 years. We know that we have to go there because the water level is climbing and problems are growing exponentially. So does technology. So let's see what this means. And where we're coming from is a world of hunt and prey. People hunting for attention. Companies trying to be smarter or faster or more aggressive, their competitors, hunting for customers or customers' attention. It's a struggle and a fight. That's where the world is, and that's what the world brought us to. And now we're in this world. Silicon Valley companies call this customer obsessed. So not only customer centered or customer focused, but actually really obsessed about the customer. And what does this mean, being obsessed about the customer? And that leads us to the comparison or the differentiation between linear and exponential organization. Let's talk about some linear organizations first. Here's that one. They didn't even know what they were doing wrong, but they had 30 different phones at the end of their game. This company, they're just trying to be better in what they've always been good at. 111 car brands in the world, of which 110 are trying to be better than one. But what they're only doing and all of the time are doing is building better cars. But the future on the streets will not be run by better cars. These companies, they've understood that different customers have different problems and different needs. So let's expand the product portfolio for a customer portfolio. But that still doesn't solve it, because what ends up is overwhelming the world with too many products and making everything too complicated. The most famous linear organization in the world, not to be missed in any exponential organization's presentation, I guess, it's Kodak. They said we print memories on paper, but last year we produced 14 trillion photos. So if we would still print memories on paper, we would have to deforest the whole world to provide Kodak with paper. So Kodak did not understand digital, they didn't understand exponential. Because if they did that math, if printing memories on paper would double, let's just take an easy exponential function, doubling function, they would have seen that they might have put some attention to the digital technology. Microsoft is on that brink. Used to be in a linear organization. Now they're transforming, and it's a very interesting observation. I don't know if you're close to them or observe what they're doing, but since they launched Azure, which now makes already 25% of their revenue, they actually become an exponential organization. But before that, they just want to be better than a competitor. In their presentations, in their talks, in their management meetings, they just spoke about how they can beat Apple at whatever, fill the blank. So this is a world of linear organizations. You see, doing something, doing it right, delivers a growth pattern, a linear growth pattern, really nice. That basically means is they want to scale products. Linear mindset question is, does it scale? So when you watch yourself, when you hear someone asking, does it scale? You know that the person, or maybe yourself, are caught in a very linear mindset. Exponential organizations don't want to sell as many products to customers as possible. They have a different approach, and I'm coming to that in a minute. So let's talk about the exponential organizations. This one, for example, they don't want to be better than Microsoft. They understand that education needs to be improved. So they want to make education better for students and for teachers. Well, this one, they understand that you have unused assets. So why not use your unused assets and turn them into income? This one, very famous exponential organization. They think your life is full of logistical decisions. So why not take care of the logistical decisions so you can focus on what's really important in your life? Or this one, maybe not even a car company, but a company that understands that in the energy, there's a circle of people who produce energy, people who store, and people who consume energy. So why not bring all this circle into this smallest granular level, your home, your own, every person, every individual can produce their energy, can store their energy, and of course, can consume their energy. So what actual organization, exponential organizations are doing is they're building operating systems around humans' emotions, needs, worries, wishes, fears, whatever you name it. Because if you build an operating system around emotions, what you can do is create a market space. And that's the magic sauce. Exponential organizations create market spaces. So you can attract people to be part of the journey, to be part of the market space, who also attract others. And when you follow the journey of these blue dots, you see that this is actually an exponential function. Of course, when they are successful, the result is also scaled products, but their intention is not to sell as many products as possible. Their intention is to continuously offer most relevant, useful, purposeful, and impactful solutions, products, services to people to solve their problems, which is a huge difference. So when we look into some indicators of linear versus exponential organizations, I mentioned before the linear mindset. Simon Sinek already said the idea of competition is outdated. Internal processes versus external delivery is something, if you work with big organizations, you might have seen this a lot. I worked for Siemens and I asked them, because I was worried about them, to be honest. They had so many processes. If the last customer would leave the building, how long would you continuously have the same workload? And they say 2 to 3 months. And that's not a sign of a healthy organization. One big indicator of linear organization is focusing on how much money they make. Can you remember just recent conversations about Tesla, how they lose money with every car they're selling? We had the same conversation 25 years ago with Amazon, how Jeff Bezos is losing money with every book he's selling. These organizations don't take money as their key performance indicator. These organizations identify problems. So the first thing, they want to learn more about the problem. They understand that they need to figure out how they can learn more about the problem. While they're educating themselves about the problem, they're improving the products and extending the products on the metrics. And that's why they start vertical and become horizontal over time. We've seen this beautifully for Amazon in the past 25 years. The co-founder of Singularity University, Peter Diamandis, I think puts it really nicely when he says, you just have to change the life of 1 billion people. Scaling products, I mentioned that before. Collaboration is also something that's stuck in a linear mindset. Collaboration means a lot of meetings, means a lot of sitting on a table and discussing what comes next, means a lot of compromise. As per my definition, is a solution where each party is equally unhappy. So compromises don't speed up a process. Meetings slow down a process. They actually blur the initial targets. So collaboration is outdated. What we need to have instead is coordinated processes, because future leaders don't want to manage people. They want to manage processes. They want to have self-sufficient team. So just make sure that the process works fine for them and they can contribute to the process, because everyone involved in the process understands that this is something bigger than themselves and they can contribute to inspire an industry, a market, their customers, and be successful. Just imagine these people having a meeting. The driver would never, they basically wouldn't have to go back to the lab. He's lost. There's no meeting happening here. Everyone knows exactly what to do. So what do you have to do as a leader? So everyone involved in the team knows exactly what to do. And that's design intrinsic motivation, which is one of the core leadership skills. And you will see throughout the conversations that we're going to have. No one we're meeting is not passionate about what they're doing. You will see when you watch me, when you listen to me, when I share with you, you will never have the feeling that I'm bored, that I need to do this, so I'm just doing it. You will always see and feel that it's really important for me. You can actually hear it from my voice, because if I'm not so excited, I just go very silent, and then it's closer to my real voice, which doesn't function right now because I have only one vocal cord and the other one is paralyzed. But I'm psyched and I'm excited because I think this is the most interesting time that we're in, and there's so much we can do. So we both have to live with this voice. Coming back to our thoughts. Growth hacking is the art of experiment. I'm going to go into this a little later. Don't get confused by the term growth hacking. It has nothing to do with hacking. It's nothing to do with data science. It indeed has to do something with growth. We have a very bad relationship with the word problem. We call the wrong things problem. Every little headache we call a problem. And then we have a real problem. We don't want to say problem anymore, so we call these challenges or opportunities. And that's bad because we have to call problems problems because the problems is something you want to solve. But that also means that you have to stop calling little headaches a problem because they're not a problem. I mentioned control before. You don't want to control people. You want to control processes. We'll talk about this throughout the week. Yeah, coming back to the exponential organization, the data organization. If I want to solve problems about you, how can I get this information? I think that's a shocking truth. They need 7 clicks to know everything about you. Everything is changing. When we talk about the exponential curve, we have hit the knee. I don't know if you're familiar with the Johannes Gutenberg moment, if you heard about that term before. Basically, it goes back to the time where Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing machine, which was a huge moment for the Christian church because they could print the Bible. And overnight, the whole world had access to the belief system. And the Bible at the Catholic Church had an exponential growth. That was big. So printing the press was one thing, but what it actually did was something that we created, the Johannes Gutenberg moment. Right now, we have 20 of these at any given time. Just let this sink. We're not talking about things that happen in the next 25 years. Silicon Valley operates 5 years ahead of technology. A lot of these conversations that we're having, a lot of these insights that we're hearing are things that are not on shelf today, or thoughts that are not popular today, not established. Might sound weird, unfamiliar, distracting. Maybe you don't agree. But when you say maybe or what if, you will make different future decisions. So I want to invite you today to embrace the idea of Johannes Gutenberg moment. We call these weak signals. So things we don't know that they're going to be big. Some identify them as something that's big. Some neglect them. But just use this week as what if he's right? What if she's right? What different decision would I make? And I promise you, you will open up to a complete new world. No one will believe you when you go out there because only you guys been here for the week and the others haven't. So that's an ugly truth. I just have to go back briefly just to make sure that there's no one waiting in the waiting room, all right? Here's a little story I'd like to share with you. In the past, the growth of smartphones versus the foresight of McKinsey. They predicted in 2002, so for 10 years, every 5 years, they made a prediction. In 2002, they predicted mobile growth was 16% because they felt like it must hit the ceiling. Real truth, actual growth was 100%. They said, we are wrong. We're surprised, but we're wrong. But now we've hit the ceiling, so we have to correct it again. And the next prediction was 14%. It was another 100%. It was another doubling. So they corrected it again to 12%. It was another 100% doubling. For the fourth time, they corrected it to 10%. Well, guess what? It was another doubling. 5 times in a row, they were wrong with the predictions. Why? Because we're used to S-shaped curves. We have this feeling of there must be a ceiling, it must be enough, because it can't continuously grow. Right? What we see right now with Tesla stock, to feel like Tesla stock is going to grow, or do you feel like it has hit its peak because it can't grow anymore? How's your feeling about this? We're in a transformation, and we're going to talk about this and the elements of the transformation this week. The fundamental of this exponential organization are soft skills. I'm going to dig into the social skills of social intelligence, just touching the surface. There's nothing I'm going to tell you that I don't already know, but it's nicely packed together in a comprehensive way, which is a good way of remembering. And we're going to talk about growth hacking, as I mentioned before, which is very much about a new organizational structure. So not only experiment, what it's actually about. And we're going to talk about this operating system that I mentioned in the beginning. So we go from making, selling, buying, producing as many products as possible to what is the problem that we're actually solving. This is why I invited you to introduce you. You know how, and then they struggle, And this is where I come into play. This is where you switch your mindset into the problem solving is, or what I do for people is, which is a very common introduction when you meet people from Silicon Valley. So let's jump into the skills of social intelligence, because we all know that culture means everything. And if the culture is one, you can put your strategy wherever you want. First one, body language. How much does your body support your language? How much does your body support your words? Tony Robbins says only 7% of communication is actually words. We have 80 muscles in our face. How many do you use when you speak? Have you ever been there that when you were concentrated, your partner said, "Are you mad at me?" Well, you have the same face when you're concentrated or when you're upset. Our kids go to the mirror and they try out different faces. They try out different things with their eyes, with their nose, with their mouth. So they use it to support their expression. We don't use this. If I talk to you like this, that means I can go away from the conversation at any given time. If I address you like this, you know that I'm committed to bear with you and stay with you. Conversational agility, that's the art of storytelling, the art of the art of articulating your message, your idea. If you're not able to articulate your idea, it is as if you don't have an idea at all. So you have to know who you're talking to. There are people who feel physical pain if you talk too much. Then there are people who want to have a personal connection with you. Otherwise, they think you only want their money. Then there are people who want to understand the process, because otherwise they think it was just the result of good luck that you came up with a good idea. So they need to understand where you're coming from. And then there are people who can't listen. They always need to talk. And you can already see for very different people, if you only have one way of approach, or if you only have one way of introducing yourself, you only have a 25% likelihood of hitting the right nerve. Or in other words, 75% chance of speaking in a way that you're making it hard for the person to enjoy listening to you. Because talking to someone faces attention span, and the attention span is very low. But also at the same time, you always have to ask yourself, am I worth listening to? Because you have to make it for others enjoyable to listen to you. The attention span of Gen Zs is 7 seconds. That means every 7 seconds, they decide if they continue listening to you or not. So there's a lot in that. I'm going to jump over. Assertiveness is the art of giving feedback. How do you give feedback? Passive aggressive, or assertive? Are you good at giving feedback? There's a lot behind that. There's actually also a nice formula, right? Because assertive basically means you care a lot, but you don't care too much. Because if you care too much, you get emotional, you're personally involved. It's very hard to find the right vocabulary. But if you don't care, why give feedback? So the beauty lies somewhere in between. But you cannot pretend not to care if you really care. You cannot pretend not to be emotional if you're really upset. In that case, a framework works well. You know, when you do this, it makes me feel like that. I don't know if it's your intention or not, but what can we do about it? It's a nice framework. You just have to fill in what a person is doing, how you feel about it. You keep it open. It might not be unintentionally, but we have to do something about it. That framework always works, and you will always find a filler so someone can take it and won't feel personally attacked. If you have these high emotions, find your framework or use this one. That's already changing the narrative, because you don't want to be right. You want to move on, right? The skill of responding to any random sentence in perfect British English. So that's mastered by Marcus. Marcus knows this because he's native. I'm talking about humor, and Marcus is actually also really funny. So humor is something that you have or you have to learn, but you can learn it. Improv is a good school for learning humor. There's a lot in that. I'm not going deeper here. This already feels a different lecture. I'm not here to lecture you. Charisma, a big thing. Touch, looking face, listen, smile, be open, not be like this. Facial expression, all these things come together. Charisma is also something you can learn. Become conscious about it. How do you approach people? Right? There are three ways of approach. You go to someone and say, "Hi, I'm Niki," or I wait for Marcus to introduce himself to me. Say, "Hi, Mark. Hi, Niki. I'm Marcus." Or I wait for Martin to introduce Marcus to me. "Hey, Niki, you should meet Marcus." All the three are fine, but the second and third are based upon hope. And you don't want to make life decisions based upon hope. So it's very good to approach someone. And as a matter of fact, everyone goes to an event to have a conversation. No one ever went to an event not to meet anyone. So everyone feels the same. They want to talk. So there is actually a life hack. You just have to find settings of 2 or 3 people who stand in the open way so there's room for a third person. We call this open 3, open 2. Because if people are facing each other in a conversation, we call this close 2. You can go and join them. You can ask them, "Can I join you?" They will say yes because you're polite. But they won't even recognize if you move away because you're not part of the conversation. Will feel terrible for you. But if there's an open 2 or an open 3, you can go there, join them, and be part of the conversation. So you never look for someone with the phone because that would be the best friend of your night. And you never look for big crowds because they will just have shallow conversations. But open 2s or open 3s, in any random setting with more than 20 people around, you will see people standing like this. It's a good way of approach, and you'll have a nice evening, a nice conversation. Default setting is the last one. Default setting is where you think that you function best, the version that you want to be. And we often bend ourselves into someone we think others want us to be. But that's not us, but we behave that way because we think it's expected from us. But then when we are that person, we also attract people who attract to that person, which is not us. That means we constantly meet people we don't want to hang around with. We come across situations we don't feel comfortable with. We have jobs we don't like. But the more yourself, you attract people you want to have around, jobs you want to have, situations you can deal with. And the way to get there is also a life hack. Ask yourself every evening, was today a good snapshot of myself? Was I the person I want to be? And if you ask the question every evening before you go to bed, every day you get closer to that person you want to be because it gets more and more clear who you actually want to be. So let's move on. Let's talk about growth hacking. Growth hacking is an interesting subject. When we look into the evolution of growth in the 90s, it was all about technology. You got the latest technology, were sexy. Technology was the driver. And then technology got cheaper. So we thought, okay, we have to have a great product, not only technology. And that stressed people because everyone could come up with technology, everyone could come up with products. And that's where we are today. We're in a world overwhelmed with products. So we call it the product death circle, which is basically as a result that you have when products are flooding the market because they get more and more complicated and you have to choose every little life movement, you have to make a choice. People don't want to make choices anymore. They just want to have something that fits to them. Here's the product death circle. You launch something, it hits a peak, it drops. Companies add features, so it hits another growth. I wouldn't even call it peak. It drops again. Another feature drops again. Another feature overloaded with features. No one wants it. Dead. It's not the S-shaped curve anymore. It's the product death circle. So we have to play against this. Growth hacking basically means that we have to also look into the organizational structure. Because how can we be innovative if we live in silos, if we have organizational structures how we have it before? How can we be innovative if we hire great people, but we overload them with stuff that everyone can do? So we have to differentiate the core skills from workload and free them up. Because everyone agrees that successful companies are those who attract the best players. And the best players of all industries, wherever you look, wherever you go, whoever you ask, have one thing in common, and that's they want to be challenged. They don't want to do boring workload stuff. They want to be challenged. And if you challenge them, you don't have to overpay because they're excited by the challenge, not by their payment. But you cannot challenge them if you put them into structures, processes, things that actually everyone can do. So how would an organization look like where you free that up for them? And then, of course, challenging core skills, makes these people stick with you. The workload tasks, you distribute evenly. So you can end up in an organization that doesn't hire a product manager, or I don't know, someone who's do paychecks, but you have a team of experts, and then you have a certain amount of people who work 40 hours per week, workloads that frees up these people. And the next thing you have to do, you have to take bias out of the equation. I like it or I don't like it is the worst judgment for a decision because it's a result of a chemical process. And I'm sure you've all been there, that you've made a decision, next year you've regretted it. And it's like, where were I? Who was I? Why did I do this? It's very dangerous, actually, to make a decision based upon whether you like it or you don't like it. So you have to turn an idea into a data point. And then you have to run experiments. An experiment means you start with a hypothesis, and 2 weeks later, you know it's verified or falsified, and you start with a new one. And you have someone being charged of your experiments. That leads you from a structure that looks like this, and this is how every organization looks like, and whatever you'd like to put in these small 2 boxes, it's going to fit your organization. And that basically means every team member is responsible for its own bucket. No one feels incentivized to be innovative. Usually, marketing is responsible for innovation or growth. A unified structure is where you have these heads and then you have rotating teams. And in this unified team, everyone is part of the big idea. Everyone is part of something that can grow big. The most beautiful example is Amazon with a software developer who came up with the idea that we should charge every customer $5 and then deliver every package for free. Last year, Amazon Prime made $14.7 billion of revenue. That was the idea of a data scientist, of a software guy, not marketing, not innovation team. Growth means that everyone in the team has an idea and they should have an ear. And if they have their idea and they can translate this idea into a data point, then you run an experiment and you learn what works and what does not work. And I'm not going deeper into growth hacking. If you're interested in this, we can have a separate conversation about that. So, as I said before, you need to experiment. You have someone from marketing, from engineering, from design, from analytics, whoever you want. You just recruit these teams from the different functions and they become your growth team. The director of growth, growth marketer with different roles, and they make these weekly experiments that help the organization learn fast and grow fast.